We're talking about leadership, and leadership is basically influence. Influence is creating change. And if we're not influencing, if we're not creating change, then we're not leading. John Maxwell talks about if you're leading and no one is following, you're kidding yourself, you're taking a walk. And so, a lot of people that are taking walks. We're talking about influence. So one of the things that it requires then, that influence or that leadership, is you have followership. And then people say, well, am I a leader? Do I have followers? And there's an old book, but I like it. It's called The Measure of a Leader. And it talks about 4 attributes, 4 characteristics, 4 qualities of a good leader. That says one thing is that the leader has followers that bring discretionary effort. The leaders try to help the followers try to help the leader accomplish the goals. So if somebody is following the leader, then they're bringing their gifts, they're bringing their effort, they're bringing their energy and motivation to the cause that the leader's rallying people around. Another characteristic is that those followers are willing to make sacrifices. And when I am asking groups across the country, what's an example of a sacrifice in your organization, the number one answer is willing to work more hours, willing to work overtime, willing to work a Saturday. And then that's a sacrifice. And what that says is if people are following the leader, if the leader has influence, then they're willing to make that sacrifice. And that means they're not saying, I want to miss maybe a game this weekend or I want to miss dinner with my family, but I understand the significance of it and I'm willing to make that sacrifice. And some people, you ask them not to miss a break, but just, hey, can you postpone your break for 15 minutes? And you think that you insulted their mother. I mean, they get all worked up about it. They're not willing to make that sacrifice. And as an aside, right, you can lead down, you can lead sideways, you can lead up. That says if we're influencing in any of those directions, there's a willingness to sacrifice. And just as an aside, if you've got a boss who you're going through a situation and he won't let you go through that situation, he wants to bump you out and say, here's what I want you to do, or here's what I'll do, or he does it himself, that says you're not influencing that situation. Because for a manager, for a leader, for a boss, for a parent, to let somebody go through a situation and know exactly what you think they should do, what you would do, and what you want them to do, but you don't, and you bite your lip and blood rolls down, that's a sacrifice. And if we got followership, we have sacrifice. Another thing is we have a conformity. And that says that people ask others to conform. If they see somebody doing something that isn't right, they see somebody at the table doing something that isn't what the witness should be, they're going to say, hey, don't do that. And the last is they manage themselves. So we see that in followerships. They bring effort. They make sacrifice. They ask others to follow along, and they manage themselves. They have good days and bad days. That's influence. And one thing that people need more from their leaders, especially in times of uncertainty, is certainty in their leadership. If they're going to have that kind of influence over someone, then they need to have belief that that person has certainty. And when I say that, I don't mean that the leader has to know the answers, but I believe the leader has to believe there are answers. And I would give you Tom Brady. We've seen Tom Brady in instances in his past team and the current team now when he's been back up against it. And he's had the ball and just a few minutes left of the game to turn this game around. And his team has looked at him, and they've looked at him as if, Tom, you know what you're doing, right? And I don't know Tom personally, but I would guess that many times he didn't know exactly what he was going to do, but he knew that together they were going to do something and they were going to win. And it was the belief in Tom and the belief Tom had in his team that we're going to come up with some good ideas, some good plays, and we're going to make it happen. That's what influence is. And so from a leadership perspective, that says, be thoughtful, be mindful, lead with love, and know that people are looking for you for certainty. You don't have to know the answer, but you have to be certain that there is an answer, and you got to find it. That's leadership.